Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Planning and Zoning Public Hearing for Tuesday, July 12th, 2022. Our first item is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If we could have the secretary read the public notice.
Thank you. To be published in the Journal Inquirer Friday, July 1 and Thursday, July 7, 2022, South Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, July 12, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall to consider the following. Number 1, PZC-sponsored text amendment, add section 8.2E to establish criteria for the resubmission of applications within 1 year of commission action. This is continued from April 26, 2022. And number 2, PZC-sponsored text amendment, delete section 7.1, accessory and in-law apartments and definitions. Add section 3.2.3, accessory apartments, which establishes criteria for accessory apartments in single-family zones. Modify table 3.1.1A, permitted usage, and modify table 6.4.3, minimum parking requirements. PZC also proposes to opt out of section 6 of Public Act 21-29, continued from April 26, 2022. Copies of the application are on file with the Office of the Town Clerk and/or Planning Department and online at https://windsor-ct.gov/planning-department/pages/planning and zoning commission applications. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard, and written communications by the public will be received by mail or email. Persons who may require an accommodation can contact staff Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at 860-644-2511, extension 2329. Bart Passaconis, Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you very much. Our order of business tonight will be first to hear from our applicants, which is also PZC, town staff, members from the public, first those in favor and then those against or having questions or concerns, and then we'll hear from commissioners. If there is anyone from the public who is going to speak tonight, we do have a sign-in sheet. Once you get to the podium, you can either sign before or after you speak, introduce yourself to the commission, let us know where you're from, and have at it. We are light one commissioner tonight. Commissioner Foley is not here. Not sure if he will be here, but I'll seat Commissioner Bernstein for Commissioner Foley at this time. And if that's enough for comments. At this time, we'll go to our first application. Application 1 is PZC sponsored text amendment. And I'll turn to our town staff, Michelle Light.
Thank you. As the commission may recall, we heard that this originally back several months ago, and there was some question at the original language what we were meaning by material change in an application coming forward to the commission. So at the commission's request, I did have our town attorney review this, and I did send you in your packet some revised language. He suggested to tighten the language a little bit. I don't know if you want me to read into the record or if you had any questions specifically about it, but essentially he did offer just a little bit more language to tighten up what you had previously. So again, this would affect when you have acted on an application, have denied an application, how or when an application could come back in for a re-up, whether they'd have to wait the year or not. Okay, thank you.
Does everybody have this language in front of them? just so. Okay.
Yeah, and I also
Okay.
sent you the context of his email to me too, so you, okay.
And as a courtesy, I'll turn to our town engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no comments on this.
Okay, thank you. All right. So at this time, if that completes staff, I will turn to members of the public. Is there anyone else, anyone here who would like to speak on the PCC-sponsored text amendment regarding establishing criteria for resubmission of applications within 1 year of commission action? Anyone like to speak in favor? Anyone like to speak against or have questions or concerns? Hearing none, we'll turn to commissioners. Commissioner Bernstein.
I have no comments or questions.
Okay. Commissioner Cavagnaro.
Thank you. I have two comments or clarifications. Reading through the language, I'm seeing some language was altered, and I just wanted some clarification on it from our town staff. So regarding the first part, I see the language substantial material was replaced with just material, and material meaning change that would alter the outcome of it, if I recall. So my question really is here, an example would be, let's say the first application that comes through is a warehouse that is 400,000 square feet, gets denied, they resubmit within the 1 year, but they change the square footage of it. Let's say it's, I don't know, 350,000 square feet. Would that be a material change? Because I'm not sure if there's a way to measure that, since we got rid of the language substantial material.
I think, again, this is the wording that was given to us by our counsel. Town attorney changed the wording to this wording, and I think at the time of any application where you have that question, you're really just going to have to seek your counsel's advice, because I think can be a subject question. I think the later part of this talks about if the application addresses the reasons of your denial. I mean, it does reduce in the building, address the reasons. So I think really this gives, I think, guidance on how you would look at an application that may be resubmitted. But I think, unless it's black and white, I think you probably will have to seek some legal advice at that time as to what material changes. So I don't think we can define it really too much better than that. And maybe some attorneys on the board will comment.
All right.
We did get a letter also that tried to explain it a little bit more, and I suggest that the commissioners keep this letter in their binder for future use or reference.
Thank you. Actually, that is my only comment. I mixed it up with something else, so thank you.
Okay, Commissioner LeBlanc.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry I missed the last meeting. I know a lot was said, and certainly I followed through on the write-up of the last meeting. But in lieu of this, my issue with this whole thing with the 1 year is that it appears to be a revolving door. And we've had some pretty long nights in here going over the same things that keep coming back, it seems like. Not that that's an annoyance, but I'd like to think that when we reject something that is based on certain criteria and having time to really sift through it and digest it and bring it back with a meaningful submission with time, I think helps the due process of it. Otherwise, again, it's like a revolving door, and I'm seeing some of these projects just keep coming in, keep coming in. We have a good reason, I think, of not approving some of these things, and yet they keep coming back. So this is my whole take on this. I think a year is probably a good idea.
Thank you. Commissioner Quarishi.
No comments?
Commissioner Wagner.
I guess I'm thinking that we need a mechanism for deciding, and I understand we get advice from an attorney, but it seems to me that the commission, we need to have some sort of a meeting where an applicant comes in and says, I've submitted this thing, it's got a material change, and half of us think, well, it's not material, it's really the same application, or the changes are only minor, they don't meet the criteria in here. How do we decide as a commission whether or not to accept the application? And if we reject it, it's another path for appeal.
I think what I would recommend an applicant do, if an applicant was coming in with an application within the year and this was applicable, I would require them to submit something in writing as to how it addresses what the substantial changes are, or material changes are, and I think you would have to vote on it. I don't know, I mean, you get your legal advice and then you'd have to take a vote. I don't know how else you would handle it.
So I don't think we should have to listen to the whole application.
No, I agree with you. I think at the time of receiving it, I think you would see, you'd have a letter of what the material change was, and at that point, make your judgment.
So I think we
Hopefully,
need
we
to
won't get in the
add,
situation, but that's how I think it would
I
probably
think
best
we
be
need to
handled.
add some words that, you know, say how we go about making that decision. Because I can see, I mean, we've had two, in this past year, at least two applications that came in a second time. I'm not going to judge whether I would have agreed or not that these were substantial or material changes, but I think we need to add some words in here that say if a reapplication for the same site comes in, there needs to be a vote of the commission as to whether the application meets these criteria without going through a full public hearing to make that decision. Because otherwise we're going to end up going to a public hearing, listening to everybody, and then deciding that it didn't really meet these criteria. So I'd like to add those words. That'll be my recommendation.
Okay. Commissioner Dexter,
Nothing further.
Commissioner Vatiri.
Having spent a lot of time in law school debating things, whether they're material or not material or substantially material, first of all, I think the wording he put in helps. I think it's better than just trying to determine what substantial materiality is. I think to what Commissioner Wagner's saying, it becomes difficult to have a debate whether or not something is a material change without going through what the applicant is suggesting is a material change, which would involve having to listen to most of the presentation again. You know, you can't just have them come in and say, okay, we materially changed because we did this, when the scope of the whole thing still has to be redefined. So I would find that to be difficult to include words like that in here. I think this makes it better. I think the fact that the added the clause that things that are being revised to meet regulations or just address any of our objections passes through this, I think helps a lot. I just think it's as good as you're going to get. Lawyers love this. You're just going to debate this until the cows come home, but it's just, this is probably as good a wording as you're going to see for it, in my opinion.
Okay, Commissioner Carey.
Nothing further.
Okay. And I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Wagner, but I really think when it possibly happens, if it ever does happen, they'll have to reapply and, like Michelle said, give us the reasons that they feel, and then that information will be referred to council, and then council will give us a recommendation. And at that point, we would meet with the recommendation and say, this is what's happening, this is what council's recommending, and then we go and vote whether or not. And, you know, it's a litigious society. I don't want to get too bogged down with the real fine words on that, because there's going to be so many different cases or so many possibilities, and I think we'll just end up chasing our tail.
I mean, so what you're saying is basically we would, based on the advice of the attorney, have to make a decision whether it's a material change or meets these criteria.
They would give us a recommendation.
Yeah,
And
so then
then-
we have to have a vote. So, I mean, all
Right.
I'm saying is let's add a sentence in here that says, the commission, upon advice of the attorney, will determine whether the application, a resubmitted application meets these criteria.
I have a problem with that because the attorney is advising us. It's our decision as commissioners.
All right,
The
then-
ultimate decision is ours.
Then leave the attorney out of the sentence, but
Yeah.
right now, I mean, if I were an applicant, I'd expect to be able to go through my whole application when all I've changed is, you know, which side of the building we put the truck entrances on.
It's more material than that. If you, what I got out of this letter, it has to be a substantial change. The size of the lot has to change. It can't be just say, oh, we're going to reduce it 10,000 feet on a 400,000 square foot building, you know, that's.
Right.
That's
I
not a
don't know that I
material
got, I
change.
don't think I got that letter.
It did,
In the memo I sent you, it's right, it's part of the memo, the town attorney's,
Oh, this memo.
yeah.
right there.
So, I'm comfortable with the language that we've given. I'm ready to move on with that. I see Commissioner LeBlanc has his light on.
Yeah, I'm just listening to the conversation, and I know, in reading the notes that Caitlin had sent out, I know siding was an issue in one of the projects, and my whole take is with that, is that we went through this whole review process based on the quality of appearance at this project, and to change that at the last minute. If I were building a house and it came down to siding, and whether it was a better quality siding and a lesser, and I'm that far in the process of going to build a house, that would tell me that it's not financially feasible to do this project. I know the two types of siding that were discussed in the last meeting, and I've actually installed hardy plank a few times for people. It's not the hardest thing to install, and it's also not that expensive. You can buy it off the shelf at Lowe's. To cheapen the project changes everything for me and how that appearance and the approval process goes in this. I'm looking at that whole project as something of a higher quality project in town, and it should remain that way. To lessen the appearance of it is huge to
That's
me.
really another application.
It probably is, but I'm hearing siding and materials, but that has to do with this
Yeah,
as part of the approval process. And it's standing out because these are minutes of the meeting and I'm reading them, but I'm looking at this Article 8 and I believe that speaks to that.
okay, thank you.
As one of the projects anyway.
Commissioner Wagner, did you have something else?
I think I've said everything I have to say.
Okay. Commissioners, any reason to keep this public hearing open? Staff? Applicant? Okay, then we will close the public hearing at 7:18 PM, and it's on our agenda later to act on this. Okay, we'll go to our next public hearing, which is the PZC-sponsored text amendment to delete 7.1 accessory and in-law apartments and definitions and add section 3.2.3 accessory apartments. So once again, I'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
So again, we had heard this a couple months ago, and there were just a couple outstanding comments that the commission had made that I tried to address in this regulation. So I did give you a couple of those comments in the memo to you. I think one of the decisions that the commission needs to make is whether you want this to be a situation where the owner has to live either in the apartment or in the residence, or if you want them to be both rental units. There's a lot of school of thought out there that if you make them have to be owner occupied, they're more difficult to finance and things like that. So I just wanted to put it out to you whether that's a consideration. If you want them to be owner occupied, you know, the rental unit or the house, we should put in the language about reaffirming every 4 years that the owner lives either in the house or the apartment, similar to what we have in our current regulations. So you'll notice the blue text in the regulation tonight is adding in the language about the reaffirmation process, assuming you wanted it to be owner occupied. And then we added some language too related to the current in-law apartments. Wanted to make sure that anybody that has a current in-law apartment that might be larger than the 1,000 square feet, it doesn't become an illegal apartment, that would become a non-conforming legal accessory apartment, so that those could continue to maintain. I did speak with the town assessor as to how we would go about informing people that their in-law apartments are now considered accessory apartments, and you know what implications that would have, or that kind of thing, or how they could go about changing their assessment to be back to a single-family house if they didn't want the in-law apartment on it. So those logistics will be things that we'll handle at the staff level. But really, from the regulation perspective, really just need to decide if you want to have it owner occupied. And I think the only other decision was, do you want these to be handled at the staff level when they're just part of the single-family house and come to you when it's an accessory, like an accessory structure? Or do you want to see all of them as they come through the process? Currently, we handle in-law apartments at the staff level. They go through a zoning permit process, meeting the requirements. The commission sees anything that's a detached dwelling, accessory apartment, or in-law apartment. I kind of put the wording in similar here that it would come to you as a detached dwelling, but we can certainly have it come to you as a site plan as well when they're just converting part of the house. Those are just some of the like final details to decide on that. And then the other thing, I'll just remind the commission, part of the process we're doing is opting out of the Public Act, which set the parameters for accessory apartments statewide. There's a procedure in the Public Act that towns can choose to opt out of it. I do have that language for you tonight if you choose to do that. Some of the things that we're doing differently than the state regulation allows, one of the things would be having owner occupancy. The state regulation doesn't have any requirement for that. I think the detached dwelling having some screening requirements and some distance, a 30-foot distance from a property line rather than your 20-foot setback is a little bit more stringent than the state. But I would say for the most part, we're really following the spirit of the state law. Accessory apartments and in-law apartments have always been fairly easy to obtain in South Windsor. I think this is just making it a little bit easier and a little bit more open for people that choose to do it. We have over, I think I told you, over 160 currently apartments in single-family homes now. They don't seem to be a problem. The 5-year in-law apartment is probably more of an issue than anything else because people either don't renew it and they want to sell their house with the in-law apartment, and we tell them they shouldn't be doing that. So this will kind of clean up any of those issues. Once you've created an in-law apartment or accessory apartment, it can be sold and be carried through. So that's where we stand with that regulation.
Okay, thank you. And as a courtesy, we'll turn to our town engineer, Jeff Doolittle.
Thank you. I have no comments on this
Okay,
application.
thank you. So at this time, we'll turn to the public. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this PCC-sponsored text amendment? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak against or have questions or concerns? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, we'll turn to commissioners. Commissioner Carey.
So the only thing I think on the question of should it be owner occupied, I do think that we should require, can you hear me?
If you could move that a little closer, 3 to 6 inches from the microphone is ideal from what I'm told, right about here.
Okay, is that better?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
I do think that we should require owner occupied. You said that was something we should talk about. I just think that if we don't, then you have a situation where people are making rental properties, out of one property becomes 2, and I'm not sure that's what we want. I think we only have 160 because they have been in-law type properties.
Okay, and just to clarify, owner occupied of one or the other?
Or the other, yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Viteri.
No, actually, Michelle clarified the one point that I had, so.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dexter?
Owner occupied, could there be an exception that says one of the units is rented, and if you want to rent the other one, it has to be affordable? Or is that really taking the right of a property owner and dictating blah, blah, blah? Just throwing it out there.
You certainly could. I mean, this is your regulation. You can write it certainly to accommodate something like that.
And then my other,
Affordable in that you would be a deed-restricted unit.
yes. Then my other thought was, there is language here about where this family situation changes, and there's a death in the family. So between the resale of the property, or the death of the owner, and the resale of the property, there's going to be a period of time. I mean, it could be short, it could be lengthy. A family member could move in. If they become the owner, then we have language in place. If it's a protracted, estate, whatever, I look at you. Yeah, it's a little milky there for me. But I do support owner-occupied unless we have a carrot out there to increase our units.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you. I think there are a lot of other situations that could lead to the owner moving out, one of which would be foreclosure. Maybe they get ill, move to a nursing home. Maybe they just decide that their daughter in Oklahoma needs support and they move to Oklahoma for any reason whatsoever. So I think the family situation change covers it, but I don't know, the example is a little extreme. It's probably only one of the many examples.
You can make the example. No,
I would say,
we can-
the death or departure of the owner or something like that.
Yeah, I guess I was trying to make it be that it's not just something that they create them and then for some reason they got to move next door because of, I want it to be an unusual situation, not a commonplace situation, I guess.
Yeah, I guess
Unless,
we're kind of telling the people who own the place they can't move for whatever reason they feel they need to move, unless we, allow that. We're kind of tying their hands in a way that I don't know if that would hold up in court or whatever. So that's my concern there. I guess I like where the family situation changed. That could apply to the actual owner. It could apply to a member of the family who lives 3 states away. It's a family situation. So I just think there are a lot of reasons why people move out that they weren't planning when they set this thing up. So in paragraph 4, first of all, I really don't think we need that paragraph because it's covered in the table. Covered in table, I got the wrong number. But if we do, then the last 2 words of the paragraph should say primary unit, not additional unit. Or just say 2 spaces for the primary unit, rather than, but I would personally say the table, I think, does a good job of covering this. Let's see. Do we want, in paragraph 5A, for the Architectural Review Committee to look at this, or is that asking too much of them when it's not a commercial property? And I'll let the other commissioners comment on that if they want to. And then looking at paragraph 3332, which is on the last page before the table, if you add up what can happen, you might only get your reaffirmation every 6 years, because if the date when your 4-year calendar, you have a 4-year, you have a 2-year, you have a 4-year expiration, and then you have every 2 years we send out the form letter. So we might be letting it go for up to 6 years before we get this clarified. Now, I don't know if you want to, do we need that last sentence at all? This is an operational decision, how you're gonna run your department and how you're gonna check on this.
Steve, just to clarify, are you suggesting 5 years instead of 4?
No, I'm suggesting the 4 sounds good, but the form letter part means we actually wouldn't get a confirmation until, depending on the timing of when it falls in the calendar, you could add another 2 years to that 4 years by this, because we're only sending it out every 2 summers, et cetera, et cetera. So you're actually getting the reaffirmation between 4 and 6 years rather than every 4 years.
Okay, and just to clarify for the commission, if we choose that it does not need the owner occupied, then this 3.3.3.2 would go away because there would be no reaffirmation.
And my final comment, again, is another nit, 3233A. Upon expiration of the 5-year permit, we may have some that have already expired, so just so we understand that any that have already expired are automatically and immediately turned into accessory apartments.
Well,
I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that, because if they expired, it means they may have turned them back. We don't know if they still exist or not, you know? I mean, we send out letters asking them to let us know, and we automatically renew them. So the assumption kind of is if they don't renew them, that they've kind of gone away. So I would think that if they had one and they want to, again, the process is going to be fairly simple for them to re-up it. But I think that I wouldn't want to, because I mean, we list an archival list of in-law apartments, and I would not want to say that those are all of a sudden accessory. I don't think that would be appropriate.
Well, that's really a separate issue. I mean, people may have not renewed their permit when they should have. Your point is well taken that maybe they need to say, well, we've dismantled this apartment and no longer need this capability.
You know, and that all might get picked up in the revaluation that's going on now too. You know, I mean, they may get dropped off of the assessor's records if they're.
So I don't know if I'd change this. If everyone agrees that if someone happens to have expired 6 months ago, are they automatically turned into an accessory apartment unless they tell you otherwise that they're no longer using it?
My opinion would be like anything with zoning, is if you had an expiration date and it expired, you would have to come in and reapply.
Okay. So those are my comments.
okay, thank you. Commissioner Quirishi,
I have nothing.
Commissioner LeBlanc.
Yeah, thank you. I'm fine with this as long as I'm reading the section on owner occupancy. And if that remains a part of this, I'm okay with this.
Okay. Commissioner Cavagnaro.
Thank you. I have 2 things or comments or clarifications. So the first one I wanted to ask about is looking at the chart that we looked at earlier, or at the later half of 2021, and I just wanted to clarify the language compared to 2129 to if we vote positively on this text amendment that we're sponsoring. So in terms of the public hearing process for detached units, attached units, for accessory dwelling units, in 2129, it does not mandate that towns, force to have a public hearing. But with this, would we be requiring applications that come forward to have a public hearing process for detached units and attached units for ADUs?
What's proposed, excuse me, what's proposed in the text in front of you, if it is a part of the attached house, it would be a site plan review at the staff level for a zoning permit. If it was a detached unit, it would come in front of the commission as a site plan. Site plans do not require public hearings. They require, meeting review, an application to the commission for meeting.
Okay, thank you. Because I remember looking at the chart. I just wasn't sure if that was part of the language that was updated from now until then. Because I thought I saw in that chart earlier it said public hearing. I just wanted.
Currently, your regulations would require a public hearing for a detached in-law or accessory apartment. That is by special exception. Currently, your accessory apartments are special exception. All special exceptions require public hearings. So we are changing that in that accessory apartments will no longer be required by special exception. They'll be allowed by site plan. So it is a simpler process.
Okay, thank you. And the last one
and
is,
cheaper, I would mention, for the town and the applicant.
Gotcha. And the last one is really just, I don't know, an opinion or a comment. Not too comfortable requiring that it is owner occupied if circumstances changes in the years to come with different occupants, and plus with the opportunity to rent it out to someone. I'm not sure I'd want to restrict it to owner occupied unless, you know, there are reasons that could convince me otherwise. I'm just not sure I'd want to regulate it as such. But for the most part, I'm still in support of this text amendment, but that's just the only comment or critique I have of it, really. And the last part, oh no, that was the last one. Thank you.
Okay, and Alan, just to clarify, one of the options is one or the other. It could be the accessory apartment is owner occupied or the main dwelling is owner occupied. It, you know, so just to be clear, you know. Okay, Commissioner Bernstein.
Mr. Chairman, relative to this item, I will need to recuse myself. If my vote is needed, possibly one of the other alternates can be selected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll see Commissioner Carey for this application. Thank you for that, Paul. Okay, as far as this application, I'm fine with the language for the most part. I understand what Steve was saying as far as the family situation, and maybe we can just loosen up that language a little. And that is 3.2.3.1 A1, and like the third sentence, the commission may waive this requirement in circumstances such or where the family situation, comma, such as the death of an owner or similar, something to that effect, just to allow for more than just the death of the owner. I'm a little bit split on owner occupied, because you could have a house that you own and you rent it out, and there's no law saying it's got to be owner occupied. And this would be a similar thing. I mean, granted, if an owner's living in one or the other dwelling, you've got somebody there who has equity in the house, somebody who's going to be watching it, has eyes on it all the time. But is it necessary? I think it would be a good thing. And I would probably support it either way. I'm leaning towards if one or the other is owner occupied. And just for the commission, I'm just going to reiterate what Michelle has in here, that PZC, Planning and Zoning Commission, has to opt out, if we're going to opt out, by a 2/3 vote, okay? So a supermajority. And then also the town council has to also support it with a 2/3 majority. If they don't, then
Well, you're back to the drawing board.
right, exactly. So, commissioners, was there anything else?
Yeah, just wanted to add a quick
Commissioner
comment.
LeBlanc?
Yeah, so I had a quick comment. I'm looking at both sides of this too with the owner occupancy, and my sister-in-law went to Yukon up in Stores, and I remember she rented the house, and the owner was in the actual smaller piece of the property and rented the house to college students, and it kind of worked out well. But the flip side of that is that on the same street, there were owners who owned these houses with accessory apartments, and they rent the whole thing out. And it was nothing less than Animal House, really, you know, what went on is where all the parties were. But there is a sense of responsibility by having the owner as part of the property, and it's the downside of not having that. You're gonna end up with situations that are uncomfortable for the neighbors, and it just doesn't set a good precedence for the town, and I'm certainly against it.
Yeah. Commissioner Viteri,
Just two quick things. First, to what Michael just said, could we put something in that leaves the owner liable in all situations if it's not owner occupied? Would that help at all, or you still would have Animal House and have to deal with that?
Sometimes it's hard to reach these landlords. I know
Yeah,
with
it's true,
some of
too.
these, just in
Okay.
general, this person could live in California and they rented his house here, and as long as they're getting the money, it doesn't matter.
That makes sense. The only other thing was, Michelle, I think 3.3.3.2 was supposed to be 3.2.3.2. See, I actually read it, so. That's it.
okay, Commissioner Carey?
So I just want to explain why I felt the way I did on owner occupied is, you know, homes and real estate have become an investment vehicle. We have, you know, all different types of investors, including private equity, getting in the real estate market. And so if you look at some of what's happening in Florida and other places, you know, they're going in, they're buying things up, and, you know, if you let people divide single-family homes into two homes and then rent both, you know, we could be in a situation that we don't want to be in the town, right? The concept of accessory apartments is to give people an option to, you know, well, the in-law apartments, but now an accessory apartment maybe helps them a little bit with their mortgage or their rent or their real estate taxes. But it really isn't designed to make us, you know, a rental property town. And so I just think we have to be careful because of what's happening in real estate right now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, anything else? Okay, any reason to keep the public hearing open? Staff? Okay, then we will close the public hearing at 7:42, and we will go on to our regular meeting. So I'll open the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning for Tuesday, July 12th, 2023. And our first item is public participation. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda tonight? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, we'll go into our new business. We have application 22-7P, Evergreen Walk Multifamily Text Amendment. And I'll turn to town staff, Michelle Light, our Director of Planning, for a report.
Thank you.
Or an update.
Okay, I did send out with your packets an updated text that basically was discussed at the last public hearing with the applicant. You'll notice in blue the changes from the applicant's most recent text. Just for the record, I'll note those under section 4.215A2C3. If the number of affordable housing units exceeds, and that's at 12.5% of the units shown on a general plan of development, the number of two-bedroom residential units shown on the final plan or general plan of development may be increased to, and it's 62% of the total number of units. The deed restriction for affordability of the affordable units shall be reduced to a term of no less than 40 years, and the use of vinyl clapboard siding excluded in section 4.215C2B4 shall be allowed as an acceptable exterior building material above 36 inches on the building. So those reflect the changes I think we discussed at the last meeting.
Okay, turn to our town engineer, Jeff DeLue.
Thank you. I have no comments on this application.
It's gonna be a slow night for you, huh, Jeff? Okay, so at this time, I'll open it up to the floor. We could go around, but
Make a motion.
okay.
I move we approve application 22-07P. I hope I've got the right one. Amend specific requirements for multifamily residential use in the Buckland Gateway Development Zone, including section 4.2.15A2E, to increase the number of units permitted to 365 units and modify section 4.2.15A2C to modify the criteria for achieving the required 2-to-1 residential commercial ratio for mixed-use developments within this zone. The following text is approved and it's attached here. The Planning and Zoning Commission finds that the zone change is in conformance with the Town Plan of Conservation and Development and the town's Affordable Housing Plan. The effective date of the zone text amendment is July 31, 2022.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Steve, did you,
Yeah, I do have a comment.
because it's your motion, so,
Okay, yeah, so I really think this is the right thing to do. So I only have one little nit. We got 12.5% in two places, so unless they have exactly 1 out of 8, we're never going to get to a situation where they don't have more than 12.5%. So, because we have it in two places, and that's just a math thing. I'm not sure it's a big issue, but that's a thought for people to think about. In the paragraph,
Excuse
little
me,
Roman numeral 2.
Commissioner Wagner, I'm not quite sure what your comment was. Could you
Okay.
repeat that? Because
So-
we have it in two different places.
Let's
under
say
two
I
different-
have a unit that's going to have 80, exactly 80 units. 12.5% is 1/8, so that would be 10 units. In that case, they would meet the first paragraph, but not the second paragraph. If they have 79 units and 10 affordable units, then they're going to be above 12.5. So any situation where we don't have exactly a multiple of 8, there's really no difference between the first paragraph and the second paragraph. And that's,
However, if they do get over the 12.5, they can take advantage of what the second paragraph says.
right, and I'm thinking they're always going to be above 12.5 unless they happen to have exactly a multiple of 8
Gotcha. Okay.
units. On the second paragraph, line 1, 2, 3, 4, you see the word reduced? Now, we crossed out 20, and we now have 40. And I'm wondering if we have any reduction actually taking place. It's a question about the wording there.
okay. Do you have other comments?
That's my only comment, but,
Okay, and just, I'll dovetail into that with my comments.
okay, great.
Okay. First off, I'll start a little bit higher on you have the CI, which is the first paragraph where it's 40-year and 12.5, and then you have the double I below that in red. I really feel that the double I, as I said in the public hearing, that one needs to be 15% because you've got the main text, and then in the lower paragraph, the red one, you're actually giving them an incentive, but you're not asking for anything. You're just giving them more than what is originally proposed. With this language, the amount of affordable units that they would have had would still be the 12 two-bedrooms and the 8. But with it, with the red language, you're offering to change the amount of two-bedroom units, increasing that significantly. And again, there's no benefit to the town. There is no benefit to the town at all to have the double I paragraph. And from what Steve was saying, for that, I'm going to say the end of the third line, I believe the following sentence should be struck out. After the comma, the deed restriction for affordability of the affordable unit shall be reduced to a term of no less than 20 slashed out 40 years. And all those words should be, I think, removed because they are just a repeat of what's said in the paragraph above it. And it just adds language that you don't need. So if a applicant comes in, hypothetically, and any applicant would be eligible to get, who complies with C1, would be eligible to do the vinyl side and clapboard siding instead of like the hardy plank. The way this is worded, there's.
I guess I don't understand that, because if you recall during the public hearing, the original proposal was 10%, and it was through discussions that it went up to 12.5. And the reason it went up to 12.5 was kind of at the commission wanting more, and the applicant stating, well, sure, put it up to 12.5 because our project is going to be higher than 12.5. And that's what the second paragraph talks about, is if your project exceeds 12.5, then you can take advantage of these things. So I just want the commission to recall what the conversation was at the meeting. It wasn't that the applicant said 12.5. That was kind of a negotiated thing to get so that up front you'll get more even if you don't have anybody going over 12.5. So I just wanted to be clear, and I think we did send out your minutes, and we could certainly review them and see if that's not how the discussion went. But because, again, I think the applicant was pretty clear to us that 15% wasn't going to work for the project. So that's why I just want to make sure that we're remembering our discussion that we had 2 weeks ago.
Well, and my recollection is the applicant said they didn't know if it would, they couldn't say, but they didn't know if it could work at 15% versus.
I know they were confident they could do it at 12.7, I guess is what their comments were.
And just to what you just said, Michelle, so they're coming in with 12.7, which is 0.2% more. So the benefit to them is instead of getting 80 two-bedroom units, they're going to get 100 two-bedroom units. Or was it 65 before? It was 80.
Well, originally you were only at 10%. So
82 and 82? Or 83 and 82?
Yeah, because you're at 10%. So they were going up to the 12.7 and then it going to the two-bedroom mix, yes.
Yeah. But the affordability is really my issue with it. I mean, I don't like the idea of, you know, you go up 0.2% and you can get all those extra two bedrooms and a less quality material on the outside. There's just no added benefit to the town. Unless we use the 15% number for the double I can't support it. They're worried about it being financially feasible. There's other options that they can explore to make it financially feasible. I know Tempo One got some kind of tax incentives. It was the first residential property in South Windsor that tax incentives were used on it. And our job is to put in some good affordable housing numbers that are going to get us to our goal that's been mandated by the state of Connecticut. So That's where I stand. If anybody else has anything to say about it, now would be the time. Commissioner Viteri.
Okay, and I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, so, but I read the minutes and I heard what you just said. They went from 10 to 12 and a half, which gives us 4 more affordable units. And what they were saying is to cost justify that for themselves, they needed to have more 2-bedroom apartments, right?
Yep.
Okay, so they are giving us 4 more affordable units than the original application. So it's not like they're just, we're giving them these extra 2 bedrooms for nothing. So I don't understand where this is a total loss for us, where we're getting 4 more units than we would have had.
You're getting 4 more units. You're still at 12.7. If you went to 15%, then you would get, I believe, another 4.5 units more affordable.
But if I read the minutes right, they said that at 15, the project is a no-go. So we get nothing then.
They were worried about that. I don't believe they said the project was a no-go.
Okay, that I just saw from the minutes. But if that would be the killer to the project, I think it's still better to get 4 more units of affordable housing, because, I mean, we're looking to get affordable housing anywhere we can, as opposed to having the whole project just be
Yep.
tanked.
But we're also trying to set some standards for affordable housing going forward. And if we just do the 12.5%, it's going to take us longer to get to our goal, and any possible moratorium on affordable housing in the future. So are you all set?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Cavagnaro.
Thank you. I'd have to agree with Commissioner Viteri. It is above the 10% threshold. I know it's not a perfect situation or scenario, but I remember asking at the last opportunity we had for the applicant if it would, I'm not going to say if they couldn't do it, but if it would be much more difficult to have 15%. And from, when we asked that, it just seemed like it would be a project that would be harder to achieve with a 15% threshold. I wouldn't want to jeopardize it. I would rather have this than nothing. I know that would, if we did have nothing, that'd give them time to come back with a more affordable option. But I think, they've analyzed this for probably more than a year now and have tried to put in as many affordable units as possible. And plus, with the material that you described, like, it's not chicken wire. Like, it's going to be, strong, viable material, not the top of the line best, but it's still going to be material that would most likely lead to, not significantly, but somewhat cheaper rent compared to what it would have been if we regulate more hefty, stronger material. I could be wrong. It's just analysis from what I've seen of other applications across the state. But that's just my analysis of it. It brings us closer to that goal. I mean, having a moratorium on housing doesn't help at the moment, but that's just how I feel about it. So I'd plan on voting for it because I don't see anything wrong with this application, and if this one passes, I don't see anything wrong with 2208.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner LeBlanc.
I guess I'll reiterate what I said earlier, and sorry if I spoke out of line at the beginning of the meeting, but I am all for the quality standards of material, and although material has gone up like everything else, rent has also gone up like everything else. So I do believe that they're kind of hand in hand. I don't like to scale back of a project once it's set and underway. I mean, we already looked at all the pictures and we sat here through all these meetings looking at it. Now is not the time to cut back on the quality of materials, and I do believe that we should stick with what the original proposal was.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Carey?
So I think that, can you hear me?
Hold on one second.
I don't believe she's seated. at
That's
Oh,
what
not
I'm,
seated, that's right.
yeah, you're not seated for this, so you can't deliberate on it. Okay. Commissioner Wagner?
Okay, so I think there's several suggested changes. I would accept the deletion of the words, the deed, restriction for affordability, blah, 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 no less than 40 years. I think they are redundant, and I'll accept those as a friendly amendment if the second agrees.
I'm not clear where we're deleting that from. In the red,
Okay.
you're deleting it, and you're deleting
Okay,
it. Why?
you see the
Because
word
it's above.
total number of units
in the red paragraph.
Red paragraph.
Double I.
Third line of the red paragraph at the end. Deleting the deed restriction for affordability of the affordable units shall be reduced to a term of no less than 40 years. And
You're deleting
Chairman
that because it
Pasaconis
already
was
says it
suggesting
above.
scratching those words because they're redundant with the first paragraph.
Okay, I
And
clear
as
now,
a
thank
friendly
you.
amendment, I would accept that if the second accepts it.
Okay, the second, Alan, do you accept that?
Yes.
Okay. The other changes, I would not accept as a friendly amendment. I would like us to vote on them. If someone wants to move for a change, otherwise, I'm happy with the language the way it is.
Okay. Commission, anybody else? Okay. Then we will move the motion as amended by Commissioner Wagner and seconded by Commissioner Cavagnaro. All those in favor?
Wait a minute. I thought you wanted to make some changes.
Just,
I heard you discussing 15% and so on.
right. And
Okay.
you're not doing that.
And
I
you're
don't
not
make motions as the
Sure,
chairman.
the chairman can always make motions in
No,
Robert's rules. Sure.
no, chairman doesn't make motions.
All right. In any case, nobody else is making that motion, so.
So we're moving the motion, as I said, as amended. I'll ask for, well, all those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye. Those opposed, nay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Capagnaro,
Aye.
Commissioner LeBlanc,
Aye.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Commissioner Dexter,
Aye.
Commissioner Viteri,
Aye.
Chairman Pasaconis.
Nay. The motion passes 6-1. Okay, we'll move on to our next part, application 22-08P, and this is the request for the general plan. And I'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
Thank you. Excuse me, I did send out a draft approval condition motion for the commission, kind of incorporating some of the comments, suggesting the affordability plan be submitted, looking for more details on sidewalk network when it comes in with a site plan. Again, the next step would be, this is a special exception general plan approval. The next step would be a site plan to come in if the commission were to approve this. The applicant would need to go back to OSTA for a revision to the OSTA permit. We do have some general Evergreen Walk general plan requirements that go back to some of the original that are referenced in here. And also, the applicant had suggested some special conditions. Again, the commission discussed those special conditions at the last meeting, and those are incorporated under item number 2, kind of the revisions of what were discussed. Thank you.
Okay. Turn to our town engineer.
Thank you. I have no additional comments.
Thank you. Okay, then at this time, we'll open it up. I see Commissioner Wagner's light is on.
Okay. I move that we approve application 22-08P, Evergreen Walk General Plan Modification and Special Exception. And I guess I'm just going to read the whole thing because it's not clear what's actually standard here. Evergreen Walk General Plan of Development is in accordance with Section 4.2.15D2 and a special exception to Section 4.2.15D1 for a 165-unit residential development for a portion of 151 Buckland Road within Evergreen Walk, known as Unit 7C. The Commission notes that this approval is for a general plan of development special exception, which does not address all engineering and site design details. Site plan of development approval is required prior to construction per Section 4.2.15D of the zoning regulations, at which time the Commission will review all specific details of the project, including but not limited to the following concerns raised during the general plan special exception application process. An affordability plan shall be submitted to the administration of the affordable units created through section 4.2.15A2E of the zoning regulation. The sidewalk network and bike racks with connections to existing sidewalks shall be included on the site plan, and interconnection to the existing apartment shall be accommodated. Number 2, the following special conditions apply to the affordable components of this development. 12.7% of the total number of dwelling units, that is 21 dwelling units, shall be reserved for occupancy by families earning 80% or less than the area median income, AMI. The 21 affordable dwelling units will have a breakdown of 13 two-bedrooms and 8 one-bedrooms, which affordable dwelling units shall be located within the 38-unit building and the 12-unit building. The 165 dwelling units shall have a bedroom breakdown of 100 two-bedroom units, 60.61% of the total, and 65 one-bedroom units, 39.31% of the total. The deed restriction for affordability of the 21 dwelling units shall have a term of 40 years. Unit 7C shall not be bound by section 4.2.15C2B4 of the zoning regulations in order to permit vinyl clapboard siding as an acceptable exterior building material 36 inches from the ground. These materials shall be reviewed by the Architecture and Design Review Board. No building permits will be issued until an updated OSTA certificate is issued per Connecticut General Statute 14-311. All general approval conditions of the March 11, 2014 for application 14-09P Evergreen Walk General Plan of Development remain in effect.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Under discussion.
I would just say there's one paragraph in here that I would like to remove. Actually, not the whole paragraph. The paragraph that says 21 affordable development units will have a breakdown of 13 two-bedroom and 8 one-bedroom. And then it goes on to say which affordable development unit shall be located within the 38-unit building and the 12-unit building. Now, we haven't seen a site plan, so we don't know whether the applicant is still going to have a 38-unit building or a 12-unit building. Plus, to me, I don't think we should require them to cluster the affordable units in 2 buildings, which kind of creates, in my view, a zone for people who are less able to afford to live there. So I would like to remove the phrase that starts, which affordable dwelling unit shall be located within the 38-unit building and 12-unit building. But that would require an approval from my second to make that friendly amendment.
Okay, so you're just to clarify, you're putting a period after 8 one-bedrooms
Yes.
and eliminating the rest of the sentence.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to second that.
But he has to agree.
I'm all for it.
Okay. So, any other discussion, commissioners?
Sure.
Commissioner LeBlanc.
I'm still hung up on that whole siding thing. Again, it's a quality issue for me, and I'm very familiar with construction. I worked in it. I'm an engineer. I work in it today, this very day. So it's something to me that the presentation that came to us, I'd like to stick with it. I don't feel that this is something that should be scaled back. When I say quality level, this is something that I think we do diligence up here is having the ability to look 25, 30 years out, and that should be the life cycle of most products. But to me, vinyl siding is a 15 to 20-year product, depending on the quality of that. It changes color in sunlight, subject to damage, especially when it's cold. Hardy plank was an issue that came up in the last meeting, and that's something that does last 30 years. I was part of the design process for a few of the railroad stations that were constructed in the last few years, and that was one of the products that were used at these stations, and that was having that goal of 30 to 40 years in mind. That way you don't have to go back and revisit it, and it's something that I feel that up here we should look at quality issues, and that's been the way it's been so far. Now is not the time to change this, and I'm hanging my hat on that.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Wagner?
I didn't have anything else.
Okay. Hearing and seeing nothing else, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion
Unless
passed.
my comment is included, I'm opposed to it.
So it's all in favor. There was no opposed, so the motion passes unanimously.
I thought Commissioner LeBlanc was opposed, because you
Did you
didn't.
oppose it? Oh,
Yeah. I
okay.
think you need a roll call.
My apology then. Then we'll do a roll call just for the record.
Commissioner Bernstein?
Aye.
Commissioner Cavagnero?
Aye.
Commissioner LeBlanc?
Nay, unless my comment is included.
Commissioner Wagner? Commissioner Dexter?
Aye.
Commissioner Patiri?
Aye.
Chairman Pasaconis?
Aye. So the motion passes 6-1. Okay, we'll move on to our next item is application 22-17 Peace Canal Properties, number 644 LLC. And we'll turn to our town staff. Michelle Light.
Thank you. So we did have our public hearing. I did provide you with some standard approval conditions, draft approval conditions. I'll just kind of review the extra ones or the special ones. Because this is multiple properties, we'd be requiring a deed combining the properties into one lot on the subdivision plan. Town engineering comments dated 6/7/22 must be incorporated in the final plans. With respect to the reconstruction of Kennedy Road and the new cul-de-sac, we would recommend the approval conditions say it's responsibility of the applicant to construct the new improvements associated with the new cul-de-sac. The applicant shall work with the town to complete the balance of the needed Kennedy Road reconstruction, leaving opportunity for the town and the applicant to work through that reconstruction. I think I represented at the last meeting, speaking with the town manager, the town would be willing to take the deeded right-of-way, the deeded land as future town land. In recognition of Commissioner Cavanero's comment about garbage and whatnot out on the site, which, I know I've seen myself, I did incorporate something in the approval condition that we would inspect the site before having it turned over to us so that we could make sure that anything had gotten cleaned up that may be appropriate to be cleaned up. And again, I have a comment about the zoning data table to have that get kind of cleaned up now that we'll have acreages changed resulting from the lot line shifts. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. I'll turn to our town engineer.
Thank you. Just to kind of reiterate, the developer has already agreed to work with us in terms of Kennedy Road in sharing information they've acquired about the road condition. And we are actively looking for grants to help fund the needed improvements to Kennedy Road. And as I said, the applicant is working with us, and we will work with them to make sure that it becomes one road with the cul-de-sac and the rest of the Kennedy Road reconstructed, so they blend in together, hopefully done at the same time.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this time, I'll open it up to commissioners. Anyone?
I can do that.
Commissioner Dexter?
I'll make a motion to approve application 22-17P with several standard conditions of approval. However, number 2 is a 5-foot concrete sidewalk shall be installed along Sullivan Ave, frontage to the west of Kennedy Road. And then as we move down the list, number 9 has some money on it, so I'll read it. A liability insurance policy shall be submitted to this commission, naming the town of South Windsor as an insured with a combined single liability for bodily injury and/or property damage in the amount of $1 million. And then we move along to 13. A deed combining the properties into one lot, as shown on the plans, is required. Number 14, the town engineer's review comments dated 6/7/22 must be incorporated in the final plans with respect to the reconstruction of Kennedy Road and the new cul-de-sac. it is the responsibility of the applicant to construct the new improvements associated with the new cul-de-sac. The applicant shall work with the town to complete the balance of the needed Kennedy Road reconstruction. Number 15, the land to the east of the existing right-of-way and the 10-foot strip to the north of the right-of-way offered to the town shall be deeded to the town of South Windsor. Before the acceptance of this land, the town shall inspect the property to ensure that any debris and/or trash has been removed. And lastly, number 16, the zoning data table shall be corrected to reflect the acreage reduction.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it for discussion purposes. Commissioners, any discussion? Commissioner Bernstein?
Yeah, I had a question, Mr. Doolittle, you might be able to help me. So not being as familiar with Kennedy Road as some others, I spent some time there, and it seems to me that the first part of Kennedy Road isn't that bad. It starts to get bad once you get much further down. Is that what we're talking about, or are we talking about the entire length of it?
We're talking about the entire length of it. It's not a very long road. It doesn't make sense to break it up into two parts, so we would look to redo the entire road as needed.
Okay, I mean, it didn't seem to be any worse condition than the road I live on, so I don't know what that says, but thank you.
Commissioner Dexter? Oh, Commissioner Wagner?
I just have one question about paragraph 15. And I don't know if this came out in the hearing, but because they're giving, well, the whole project was approved by inland wetlands, but they're giving us the land to the right of the right-of-way, and we're keeping the right-of-way for the non-version, the non-built version of Kennedy Road. Are they meeting the coverage requirements in the land that they're keeping?
Yes, impervious coverage, yes, they are.
Thank you. That's my only
And that's
question.
why with the lot reduction, it'll be reflected on the plans, but they do meet it.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Our next is the Scannell Properties Application 22-18P, the request for the site plan approval. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve application 12-18P, Kennedy Road Distribution Center. Number of standard conditions, 1 through 12. Condition 3.
Application 22-18P, right?
Yes.
That's what- Okay, thanks.
Condition 3, the application is subject to the conditions of approval of the Inland Wetlands Agency Conservation Commission, including bonds in the amount of $30,000 to ensure compliance with the erosion and sediment control measures, and $50,000 to ensure establishment of a storm water system, and $50,000 to ensure proper installation, follow-up inspection, and maintenance of mitigation measures. Number 4, a landscape bond in the amount of $25,000 is required and must be submitted prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy if work is not completed. This bond shall be held for 3 years to ensure survival of the plant material. It should be plant
Is that plant or plaint?
with a T.
With a T? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
And then dropping down to condition 13.
Yeah.
Engineering comments dated June 9, 2022 must be incorporated into the final plans. Any buildings proposed to be demolished that are 75 years or older are subject to the town's demolition delay ordinance. That's number 14. Number 15, a waiver to section 6.3.3F has been granted to allow light poles within the truck courtyard to be 35 feet in height. Number 16, a deed combining all the properties into one lot shall be submitted The property address shall be known as 67 Kennedy Road. Number 17, in accordance with section 5.5.3, this application is subject to access management regulations, including an easement following cross-access to and from the adjacent property on Sullivan Avenue to the west of this site. The final location and size of the access easement shall be reviewed and approved by staff. Number 18, the applicant shall submit to staff the final rooftop screening plan once the final location of the units has been determined. And number 19, the zoning data block shall be updated to demonstrate zoning compliance based on the new acreage of the lot.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Dexter. Thank you. Discussion, commissioners. Any lights? Not seeing any. We'll move the question. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. We have our number 5 PZC sponsored text amendment. Add section 8.2.e to establish the criteria for the re-subdivision of applications within 1 year of the commission action. Michelle, did you have anything else to report on that?
No, I have no other comments. I thought I printed out some wording for you, but if you were to adopt it, you'd make the finding that it's in conformance to the Plan of Conservation Development, and you want to set an effective date, and an appropriate effective date would be July 31st if you wanted to do that. For this particular one, I think in the accessory apartment, we're requesting a later date.
Yeah, okay, so I might have you help, did you find it? Okay. Commissioner Cavagnero?
Thank you. Just a quick question. I thought of it after we finished the public hearing. So I assume with this text amendment, it uses, in the language, it uses the word application. I assume that PZC-sponsored text amendments are exempt from this. So we, like, let's say someone on the commission would like to vote on some language, puts that on the agenda, and it fails, and they're not satisfied, so they put it in again. Are they allowed to do that within a year? Or are we exempt from this text amendment that we're voting on?
I'll turn to
I
Michelle.
would say you're exempt, because your PZC text amendments do not follow the same legal timeframe that an applicant's request does. I mean, you can put forward a text amendment and then never decide on it if you so choose. So I would say they would be exempt from this.
All right, thank you.
I did find one copy of the wording I'll hand over.
Well, whoever makes the motion,
Just to read this?
please.
Approval conditions for zone text change, PZC-sponsored resubmission requirement. Number 1, the Planning and Zoning Commission finds that the zone text is in conformance with the Town Plan of Conservation and Development. And 2, the effective date of the zone text amendment is July 31st, 2022.
And it's adding section 8.2.e to the regulations.
Right? Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing in, Commissioner Wagner, I'm sorry.
Well, I made my point earlier. I think we need a sentence added that would establish a process that the commission, prior to approving a reapplication, shall determine whether it meets the criteria in this section.
Okay. I think the language is good as it is, but if anybody else would like to support that, or Paul, if you would like to add it, it's your,
What was it again, Commissioner Wagner?
Okay. Prior to full consideration of such an application, the commission will determine whether it meets these criteria.
All I hear are echoes in this room.
Pardon me?
All I hear are echoes in this room.
Yeah. I would feel more comfortable leaving the language as is because it really is a gray area that we've got to address once we get to it. I don't know how anybody else feels.
Well, I tend to agree with you, Bart, especially since the town attorney already's vetted it, and do we need to give it back to him to, you know what I mean? Let's just move forward.
Anybody else? Paul, did you have anything else? Or? Okay. So it's already been made the motion. Did we have a second? Okay. Other discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and we have that's okay. So just for the record, we're going to number 6, which is PZC sponsored text amendment, delete section 7.1, accessory and in-laws and
This comes out of the law about the opt-out. I highlighted the opt-out part, which talks about you can opt out after you have a public hearing, you state on the record why you're opting out, that kind of thing. So just for your, I want everybody just to know background when you're making a motion on opting out, what it meant.
okay, thank you. Okay, so, commissioners,
Can we work on the wording of paragraph 1 where we were going to change the family situation before we make the motion?
this is public hearing number 2.
I think you had some good wording that maybe we should incorporate into the motion.
Yep. Yeah, Michelle, did you try to make any change to number 1 of 3.2.3.1?
So the determination, I guess, is if we want to keep it to be owner occupied, but allowing where the family situation changed and such as, we wanted to put something like such as foreclosure, death of a, you want me to put something like that, like a foreclosure or death of a family member or something along those lines in the text?
I guess, I mean, to me, and I'm thinking about my family situation, and I have family that's scattered quite far, and something could cause me to want to move out of town suddenly. That happened to either Texas or Korea, where my family is located. So I'm just thinking there are many really legitimate reasons why an owner would move out, and I kind of like just leaving the wording.
Yeah, why don't we put anything? Why don't we just say that the commission can waive it and just leave it at that and let them come to you and tell you what the situation is?
I mean, I like the family situation, or, I mean, it could be just a personal situation too. I mean,
Just put a
person gets
period,
sick and has to go to a nursing home.
Just put a period and then take the parentheses. We won't put about the death of the owner in there.
Okay, so period after,
Changed.
okay.
I mean, that still requires the commission to take an action, you know, having someone come in and let you know.
Are you good with that, Steve?
Maybe we should say personal or family situation.
personal or family situation.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Everybody's good with that? Okay.
So
And I have a correction, being the last number to be corrected to be 3.3.3.3.
I'm sorry?
I have a numbering correction that I'll be making on the text as well, that Commissioner Viteri pointed out.
On
And we're deleting paragraph 4.
3.3 instead of 3.2,
Correct, yeah,
right? Yeah, okay, good.
thank you.
Were there any other changes that anybody,
I think Commissioner Wagner had one on number 4, under 3.2.3.1, in addition to the parking required for the primary unit, yeah, instead of the additional unit. I thought that was good.
Actually, my suggestion was to delete the whole paragraph since it's covered
Yeah,
in
we're
the
going to
table.
delete number 4 entirely because it's
Yeah.
addressed under the parking requirements and under the
Oh,
table.
sorry.
So you don't even need item 4 at all, so we'll renumber appropriately.
okay,
So there'll only be 5 numbers in that section.
so that'll move all the numbers up for whoever makes the motion.
Correct, yeah, we'll adjust those.
And I guess the person who makes the motion is going to be the one who either includes 3.3.32 or not. So, Commissioner Wagner?
I wish I knew which way I thought on that one.
Have at it.
I'm going to move that we approve PZC-sponsored text amendment to delete section 7.1, accessory and in-law apartments, and definition add section 323, accessory apartments, which establishes criteria for accessory apartments in single-family zones, modified table 331A, permitted usage, modified table 643, minimum parking requirements. PZC also well, I won't make that. And the Planning and Zoning Commission finds the zone text is in conformance with the Town Plan of Conservation and Development. The effective date of the zone text amendment is 9/1/22. Do you recommend I read this as it sits or just say what we changed?
It was posted,
Okay, so the changes to the posted wording that we've recently discussed is in paragraph 3231, the sentence that begins, "The commission may waive," is now going to read, "The commission may waive this requirement in circumstances where the personal or family situation changed, period," and we're not including the parenthetical clause there. We're also deleting paragraph 4 of section 3231, which causes a renumbering of the following 2 paragraphs. And the paragraph labeled reaffirmation of owner is now number 3232. And
what was that? 3.3, no, go further down. The
Oh.
next paragraph is the one
Okay.
which should be all 3s.
Oh, okay. This is 3231.
Oh, it's all 3 point, okay, my mistake, my apology.
And I guess the question about the form letter and all, is that something that you need in here, Michelle, or should we delete those words?
I'm sorry, the reaffirmation of the owner section, you mean? If it's going to be owner occupied, we would want that to be in here because that's how we would do zoning compliance every 4 years.
Yeah, so, okay, I'll just leave that paragraph as it is.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? Commissioner Viteri?
I think I second what I heard, yes.
Okay, we have motion as a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All
Nope.
those, Commissioner Wagner?
Nobody wants to discuss the owner occupied part. I don't.
You're good? Okay. So hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now, would anybody like to make the motion to opt out of Section 6 of the Public Act?
I was kind of waiting to give someone else an opportunity.
You're on a roll. Commissioner Wagner.
So, in connection with, okay. We move that the PC, I move that the PC is opting out of the provisions of Public Act 21-29. The PZC feels the newly adopted accessory apartment regulation is intended to meet the spirit of the law and provides a process to allow accessory apartments in all of our single-family zones.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and yeah, Commissioner Carey's in on this one, just for the record. Thank you. And discussion, commissioners. We've got the record for all the reasons that we are switching it. Trying to comply with the spirit of the language. Is there anything else, anybody? Any discussion, questions? I saw a light go on, I thought. Did I? No? I see 4 of them in the screens, you know. It's all me. Okay. Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of opting out, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
So Chairman, at this point, I'll pass on a message to the town council about the planning and zoning's action and start the steps to get on a council agenda and go forward, letting them see what we adopted and seeing about their process of opting out. And I'll
Okay.
report back, let you know.
Great, thank you. And when they have their public hearing, if you could make the commission aware by email and any commissioners who would like to attend.
Yeah, I think they'll have the option of doing a hearing or not doing a hearing, so I certainly will keep everybody apprised of it.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we'll go into bonds. We have a whole laundry list of bonds. This one's no good.
I'll take the motions, Mr. Chairman.
Just give me a minute to put some of my stuff away, so. The bonds, yep. We have a memorandum of bonds, July 12th, 2022. Would anybody like to move?
Take the
And
motion.
what I would ask is, yeah, we can group them, but I keep the landscaping separate from inland wetlands. So, Commissioner Cavagnero.
I'll happily read all of them, so no one else has to. So before I even read them, you said you wanted to group them. I assume that's like the inland IWA-CC bonds, group them all together, or like read them?
No, just by their title. If they're all the same, you can put them all in the same motion, okay? So do the landscape bond for the twin manufacturing first.
Yeah, I'll do that separate. I'll make the motion to approve landscaping bond 20-37P, twin manufacturing, amount 3,000, reduction 3,000, balance 0.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And Inland Wetland Agency Conservation Commission bonds.
And read them one at a time, right?
You can do the two twin ones at once.
Okay. The two 2037P applications of Twin Manufacturing Stormwater and E&S. The first one, E&S, is amount 5,000, reduction 5,000, stormwater amount 10,000, reduction 10,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
All right, I'm just getting figured out how to group them now. All right, so applications, or application 17-04P, there's one that's SW E&S, amount 50,000, reduction 50,000. Then there's 17-04P, South Windsor Estate Stormwater, amount 30,000, reduction 30,000. And the last one is 17-04P, South Windsor Estates Wetland Plantings, amount 10,000, reduction 10,000.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Pick whichever one you want. Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Next
Okay.
application, 21-04P, Evergreen Walk, Tamarack, exit E&S, amount 20,000, reduction 20,000. And then the other one is 21-04P, Evergreen Walk, Tamarack, exit Stormwater, amount 25,000, reduction 25,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, any discussion? Questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next one is 21-05P, Evergreen Walk, Unit 8, E&S, amount 10,000, reduction 10,000. And the other one is 21-05P, Evergreen Walk, Unit 8, Crop Cover, amount 5,000, reduction 5,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next one, 21-06P, Evergreen Walk, Unit 7C, E&S, amount 10,000, reduction 5,000, balance 5,000. The other one is 21-06P, Evergreen Walk, Unit 7C, Crop Cover, amount 5,000, reduction 5,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
All right, and then one more for this one, 12-41W, Michelson Residence Wetland Plantings, amount 3,000, reduction 3,000, balance 0.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Michelson, where's that one?
Over on Pierce Road. It's a single-family house lot.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
And one last bond, subdivision bond, 20-56P, UW Vintage 2 subdivision, amount 10,000, reduction $670, and a balance of $9,330.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Lots of bounds. Okay, we have minutes from May 24th, 2022 and June 14th, 2022. I just had some little housekeeping typos that I'll give my copy to staff, and other than that, we can, I can go over them, but it's really just like which did not feel, it's did instead of dies. Little things like that, one is, and in making this change instead of I making this change. THOS replaced with that, stuff like that. So if the commission is all agreeable to those, we can just accept by consensus the minutes as changed. Agreed? Okay.
No, I don't have the 6:14 minutes.
6:14 should have been on, oh, let me see if I had it in mind. I got it, I think. Oh. 6:14, yeah, those were the ones that I was talking about. They were in with our last package.
The 6:28 minutes I gave to you guys today, just in case anybody wanted to review them ahead of time, but they weren't on the agenda for approval
Yep,
for
I'm
tonight.
gonna give the commission the opportunity
That's
to
what
take them home and
That's what I
review.
want, yeah, I didn't expect that.
But, yeah,
So we're still holding 6:28.
we had, yeah, we're gonna hold 6:28 and we'll review them and move forward on them. Just for the record, we have these minutes. I suggest that commissioners save like the May 24th minutes and keep them with your cannabis file, because it's a good referral, because, you know, these meetings happened weeks or even a couple months ago. And that's something I tried to do, you know, I try to package my stuff together. So when I'm referring back to it by notes, I have the minutes also, which are highly useful. So we accepted those two by consensus, which is the May 24th and the June 14th. We are at old business, Michelle.
I don't have any old business. I just kind of wanted to just reiterate what we'll be doing at our next meeting in 2 weeks. We'll have a public hearing on your 2 temporary and conditional permits. We have the text amendment related to parking at the Leonard text amendment. We also have the Drake Motor Partners text amendment. That'll pretty much clean up everything we have pending right now, with the exception of Hartford Truck. And I think Hartford Truck we have scheduled for our August meeting, because we do have some public that may want to come out to that meeting. So we did receive one application tonight, which is the Wood Memorial, Friends at Wood Memorial Library, the Native Indian exhibition. So those will probably be on your August agenda. So just kind of give you a preview of the next 2 meetings. I know some people will be out of town, but we're kind of dealing with those text amendments. And then as far as your regulations that are still outstanding, we do have the cannabis to get back on, you know, at your direction. We'll put that back on.
Okay, and just for the commission's knowledge, the Drake one is the old Esporta.
Well, actually, it's a
Fitness.
text amendment, so it's really just for the Buckham Gateway Zone.
Right, but
They're
yeah,
thinking, yeah.
correction. It is a text amendment.
And I
So-
just also wanted to, maybe for the public and for the other commissioners to know that all of our committees are active working. You're keeping me very busy. The warehouse, the multifamily, and the residential. So maybe at the August meeting, we can have an update from the different committees, just to give a little blurb of where we are and you know, where we're headed. Thanks.
And we're meeting next week. You want to go over that again?
Residential is meeting on Monday, yep.
But I believe
We also
Steve
having
was
a-
referring to our legal training.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Next Tuesday night at 7 PM in the Madden Room will be your planning and zoning training with the town attorney. Yes. Yep.
Okay,
And, you know, he and I did speak about, you know, the training, and you'll have opportunity at the end to ask him any questions you might have. You know, we've had some interesting questions on what you can regulate and not, so he is prepared to, you know, maybe talk to you a little bit about that as well, he said.
okay.
You said that's in the Madden Room?
In the Madden Room, which is the larger room downstairs, yep.
So commissioners, is there any other business to come before the commission tonight? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion, we adjourn?
We have motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody.